YouTube is full of dualistic thinkers. This is about the issue of Dave Chappelle and the closer. He's saying bad words. He's transphobic. Or is it SJWs are wrong? Only two genders, it's plain as day. A man has a penis and a woman a vagina. Or maybe that's complete bullshit. In this deep dive, we must remove the filth. Being honest, allowing ourselves to say stupid shit, and fumbling our lines. We must challenge ideas beyond good or bad. The Filthy Truth Exposed examines the work of the great Dave Chappelle. In the closer, let's do this.
It's true, man. This is going to be an exciting episode. I'm excited to hear your opinion on the Dave Chappelle situation, the closer, and the controversy that was kind of around it. Some people were upset anyway. Yeah. But I want to let everybody know that's watching the Filthy Truth Exposed right now to check us out we're on YouTube and Spotify and iTunes, and we'll also be on BitChute and Rumble coming up. So check us out on all those platforms. If you're interested, you can listen to the audio version or the video version.
Well, let me just start by saying I am a Dave Chappelle fan. I mean, I have watched his specials, way back in the day, right? I mean, shut up, bitch.
Chappelle Show.
Huh?
Chappelle Show.
Yo, yeah, Chappelle Show. I mean, he's a funny dude, you know what I mean? And but I know that this one was controversial. So when I watched it, I was okay, it is what it is. I'm open to whatever he's gonna say, And you could say that I'm not easily triggered, you know what I mean? It's not much gets me upset, So but yeah, I try to have an open mind about it. And but yeah, I thought as far as comedy goes, like, he's funny, right? I mean, I thought it was decent. I wouldn't say it's his best work. Have you seen the Sticks and Stones one, or?
Yeah, I didn't watch them recently, but I saw them when they came out.
Yeah. So while I do like Chappelle a lot, part of me feels like he's a little bit stuck in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like some of his jokes just just feel different. They're just, but regardless of that, I extremely appreciate his honesty. And I feel like that his honesty is important. It doesn't matter. Okay, he's going to say some stuff. You kind of know where he stands. He's been saying the same stuff over and over again. He's had some people call him transphobic. He refers to himself as transphobic. But regardless, he has opinions about things. And, I think he shouldn't be censored. I mean, I know I'm coming right away with my bias, right? But I'm saying, I feel like the guy deserves a chance to be heard, And at the same time, people who don't like him, they're free to, say whatever they want about him, right? Then he talked about that, getting dragged on Twitter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. So, I mean, you think people are free to have a complaint about the show, but what about the idea of, canceling him? Like, oh, we're not going to watch Netflix anymore. We're going to cancel our subscriptions, or canceling him, like saying that he needs to be removed from certain platforms.
Well, I personally don't feel that way, but I can understand people with their opinions about that. They're free to express that idea, Sure. That's what makes America, it sounds kind of weird to say, but a little generic, but it's like, hey, I believe in that sort of freedom of speech, and it goes both ways. So what I thought I'd do is I want to delve into kind of the main points that I think Dave Chappelle, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give his main points where I think he's coming from, and then I'll give examples of that. Now, when I give these points, I'm not saying necessarily that he's 100% aware of where he's coming from. I think he is aware, but some of it is a little bit what I would call undertone in the text. So when I say undertone in the text, what that means is kind of like saying, he in one hand says I'm for something, but then in his jokes, he kind of says other stuff. And, and the point of this isn't to, criticize him, but actually is to kind of, let's delve into what is truth and what he's trying to say, and not try to be, like combative here. We're not trying to take sides. Oh, I think this person is right or wrong. It's nothing to do with that. Right. So I'm going to start it right off.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's how I'm thinking about dealing with this issue. So first one is, I think that Dave has the means, and not just the means, but he has empathy for people. He has compassion, but routinely insinuates violence and brutality, mainly towards trans people. And it comes across in what I was talking about in these undertones. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of these. So one is, he said, I'm going to punch the LGBT community right in the AIDS. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop calling me a man. I'm a woman, right? It was referring to somebody. I whooped that toxic masculinity out of that bitch. Okay. Before I kill you, I'm going to put you in the trunk. Chappelle explains that he didn't, in fact, threaten the women. I felt that way, but that's not what he said. It was more clever than that. He talked about, he's a feminist. He considers himself a feminist. A human being believes in equal rights for women. And then he asked an opinion from his friend, Ange, who says, I hope those white bitches get tear gassed. There's some other examples. So I think that's the first thing. And there's different reasons behind that. I won't go into it, but that's the first thing. Hold on one second here.
Well, he did. Yeah, I agree. He did. There was some sort of like mild violence in there, but he also made it clear that he kept about talking about peace. He wanted peace.
Correct.
So I felt like he was using the violence really as the punchline, as the joke.
Right.
I mean, it's literally called.
That's where the joke comes in. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's literally called a punchline.
Yeah. Now listen, I'm not saying that he's one of those people that is advocating for violence or anything like that. I'm not, and I don't think he's a bad person. I'm just giving just on what his language is saying, right? That's all. Just that those are some of the things that he said. But you're right. Under that is also an idea of compassion and a sense of that he wants equality. So the second thing is, he sees women in a kind of misogynistic way. Women are only, basically it's, how they look, if they're hot looking, you know what I mean? They're merely as fuck objects. You know what I mean? He says feminists, he was talking about, the frumpy dykes. You're trying to rape us, right? She was talking about a dyke that said, you're trying to rape us. And he says, not you, bitch. You know what I mean? Like not you, cause you ugly, right? It's kind of like that. Like, oh, you're not a real woman. You're kind of you know what I mean? It's that sort of dismissive, I only see women as being beautiful, and it's and fuckable. And the rest is kind of like they're not human, or that, you know what I mean? I may take that too far, but I see that. He sees, I think, trans people as kind of delusional and confused. I think that's another, I don't have things to back that up, but it feels that way,
That's okay. I sort of agree with what you're saying. I see what you're saying, but I think the next step is that what makes that funny is that he's really making fun of the misogyny. He's making fun of himself. Yeah.
Sure. Again, when I say these things, I'm taking it not as that he's, that he's doing something horrible. Like a lot of SJWs and other people would be like, oh, this is wrong. This isn't. No, actually, I really appreciate his brutal honesty. And it's not a character assassination saying, oh, he's a bad person.
Right.
I appreciate that. And I feel like it's constructive.
It is constructive. Yeah, I agree.
Extremely constructive. Yeah. Now my next point too. Okay. So he thinks gender is just a fact. He said that, I think, a couple times. You're a man or a woman, right? That's one of the things he says. And he goes on about this, trans women's genitalia. Not quite what it is, right? not exactly what you think it is, right? Is points that out, little stuff like that. Gender is a fact. Every human being in this room, every human being on Earth had to pass through the legs of a woman to be on Earth. This is a fact. Chappelle said later, declaring himself Team TERF. So that was the other thing of that. Oh, that's a whole nother issue, but now I'm not saying this to say that trans women aren't women, but I'm saying those pussies they got, you know what I mean, right? So that's a direct quote, right? Like, oh, yeah.
That was a direct quote, and he didn't even finish that joke because he let the audience. He let the audience
knew what he's talking about, right? There's an inside joke there, right? They're not real women. There's,
in those instances, he's really just stating facts, and somehow the fact is funny because it's not supposed to be said for some reason. That's how I felt about those specific jokes that you just mentioned. Yeah.
Well, he's reflecting on a belief system that's like something that it's very difficult. I'll get into that later about that, but it's anyways, I'm off subject here, but let's see here. So, and then the other thing was the difference between men and women is purely idea of the parts of the body that, man, you have a penis, and woman, you have a vagina. So then he talked about, he was tricked into calling a trans woman beautiful, but was just being polite, right? Someone showed him, then the lady came out, had the picture, and then was like, oh, do you know that's a trans woman? You know what I mean? Something like that, or something. Ha, I see that you're attracted to someone you didn't even know, you know what I mean? And so he's exposing too, like the way that he's being treated, and so the sort of clap back, like where it's the trans person's acting like a black woman, and is trying to make him look bad, right? And insulting him. See, these people are not really having an honest discussion with him, and not saying, hey, look, this is the problems I have with what you're saying and why you're incorrect. They don't do that. They attack him, right? They attack him for his views, which is it actually doesn't help your situation. Like it's not going to get the point across when you do that. That's one
right. I feel like people are being intolerant towards his own ideas.
Right. Let's see here. And then he gives an example about the woman that comes in and then stands up and pees, you know what I mean? And at the urinal. That's another kind of example of that. He sees just women as like, it can't be a woman, I mean, he kind of insinuates that idea, right? And then another point that he says is the LGBTQ people have kind of a white privilege, and they don't understand the real struggles that black people have had to deal with. This one hit home. Like when he said that, I thought he's really talking about things that are truthful. I mean, it's when you look at what's happened to black people over the years, and then suddenly when the gay movement kind of comes in, and then all of a sudden it just seems like it seems a little bit easier for them. I'm not saying it's been easy, but it seems like an easier ride. You know what I mean? Do you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I do. He was comparing civil rights for black, whatever you want to say, people of a different race, compared to people who are transgendered or and gay. He was even comparing that to just gay people.
Exactly. So I'll give you examples. He compared transgender women to white people who use blackface. He mentioned that being trans is similar to this lady named Rachel DeLoza. She kind of was tanned, and she was a white lady that kind of looked black or whatever, calling herself an African American. Gay. I like this quote. He said, "Gay people are minorities until they need to be white again." Right. So it's interesting. Another one was no one calls the police and says that gay guy stole my laptop. Right. Another interesting point that he mentions. But before I move on, though, with those comments, I'll point some illogic into some of the stuff that he said, right? First of all, there are black people that are trans, right? So that just simply blows what he's saying out of the water, right? It's just like he ignores that fact. So it doesn't make any sense that somehow he can put all of LGBTQ and all the trans thing and just say, oh, that's a white thing. It's not a white thing because it's you can be Mexican and be trans, right? You can be anything and be trans. So it's nothing to do with that at all. Let's see. The other point I thought is just to be in plain terms, he really doesn't give a fuck, right? I'm rich, bitch, right? He's just kind of like, he just says what's kind of off the top of his head. I think sometimes he says stuff and then maybe later on he goes back and goes, oh no, I can't believe I said that. It's like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So I think that some of it's that. I think some of it's off the cuff, which I kind of appreciate. So, so another point is he strongly feels that we should have an open and honest discussion about gender and trans issues, and it will help advance things for everyone. I think he's right about that.
He's talking about, I felt like through the whole show is really about inclusivity, equality, and tolerance for different. Yeah. And I feel like anybody that's talking against that show, I feel like they're the ones that are being exclusive, and people who are saying that, this isn't comedy, it's just hurtful. I feel like they're the ones who are not. They're not recognizing that he's talking about equality, and it seems like people who are complaining about it, they're not.
They never watched the special,
They're not thinking. Well, I guess that could be. Yeah, they're not thinking
part of it too.
The equality, the idea of sort of making fun of all different people equally.
Right. Really. Right.
I have a whole list of other groups of people that he made fun of in that show, and it wasn't just transgender people. Right.
Absolutely, that's true. So let's see here. So I think I the other one was kind of similar to a similar thing I said. Oh yeah, here's one that I want to mention. It seemed like he didn't understand the idea of punching down. I know that was something that he was kind of talking about, but he said he didn't think he did that. He's kind of said he's just a comedian, nothing more, nothing less. So talked about at the nightclub where he met Daphne. You remember that?
Yeah.
And she wrote a tweet in defense of him. Punching down requires you to think less of them. And then, 6 days later, she killed herself. And so I thought that was kind of powerful. I mean, it was an interesting point.
I think that's what punching down is, right? Like you can make a joke, but if you genuinely think less of somebody, then it comes off like you're punching down, like you're either being racist or you're judging somebody without empathy.
Yeah. So I actually don't think that's what, I think that's where he's a little bit misled about the punching down part, but it's close. I mean, I think it's close, but what I think the difference is between punching up and punching down, I'll give you an example, right? And this is a good one because in this situation, I can punch. I'll give you an example of punching up versus punching down, right?
Okay.
So when we're talking about, now I can't think of the person's name. The one that was, what was Bruce Jenner turned into? I forget.
Caitlyn Jenner?
Right, Caitlyn Jenner, right?
Yeah.
And so she was running for governor, and she said stuff like, well, of course, in the past, she was like against gay marriage. Like, so, or it's between a man and a woman. You know what I mean? Like, what an idiot. You know what I mean? Here's this person that's changed themselves and has this really bizarre viewpoint, which is fine. I mean, it's okay, I guess. And then she talked about the homeless people and how, we should get rid of them. You know what I mean? They're in the way, This is really dismissive, and anyways, but stuff like that, just a complete asshole. Like it's like stuff like that. That's example punching up someone that's rich, someone has done things that kind of deserves the punch. You know what I mean? Whereas if you kind of trash on people that are, lower economic status than you, have been, over the years have had, lots of different issues happen to them. It's tough being gay. It's tough being someone who's trans.
Okay, but
that's the punch up and punch down. It's not.
No, I think it's the person, what the person really thinks. If the person really thinks that person is lower than them, then you're punching down. But just because somebody is a different economic class, or different gender, or different sexuality, you can still make fun of them or have negative attitudes towards them. But if once you really feel that they're lesser than you, then you're punching down. That's how I feel.
Yeah, maybe you may be right. I may be misguided in that idea. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. I feel like, people should be able to say whatever they want. You know what I mean?
Ultimately, it doesn't matter.
Ultimately, it's just a show, right? It's, if you don't like the show, you can boycott that show. You can, so let's see. I think that's pretty much it. There's probably some other stuff.
I felt like he's really just making fun of people, like people as a whole. But then he breaks it down into different types of people: people with AIDS, abused people, preachers, police, Jews, LGBTQ, women, white people, transgender people, poor people, veterans, suicidal people. He's making fun of people as a group. And what else are you supposed to make fun of?
Right, it's true.
I agree with you. I think it really doesn't matter. Like he I think he's coming from a good place in that whole episode, in that whole show.
Yeah.
And an important part I felt was at the end, he said that empathy must go both ways. So even though you might not like what he's saying,
right,
he's requesting empathy for himself, because he's living a human experience as well as people who might interpret things that he's saying a way that he doesn't mean. Both sides deserve empathy. And so to try to exclude somebody or say him as a comedian, he shouldn't be performing or he shouldn't be on these platforms, he's not getting his share of empathy as far as like being a human and living a human experience himself.
Yeah, I think you made really good points there. I think that's true. So let's go into kind of where I think, he's a little bit misguided. There's a couple points I want to make.
Okay. This will be a good point to sort of wrap up on, I feel.
Yeah, like. a couple points. So I think the first question is, I think he misunderstands the difference between sex and gender. Sex is a little more simpler, it's like you're born a certain way, you're born a male or you're born a female. Even that has some issues. Well, I'll get into that later sometime. But he doesn't understand that gender is what we'd call a social construct, basically you get ideas from your society, the roles of gender, what it is, attitudes, and then you pass those down to your children and when they grow up. And these roles and standards change over time, and the change depends on the country you live in. Right. So it's kind of that thing. The second thing is, when we talk about what is a man or what is a woman, it's a lot of times looked upon, as whether it be chromosomes, as how people dress. And so I guess my point is that we have a couple problems when you have someone that's born and then they don't feel like they don't feel male, they don't feel female, or whatever it is. They don't feel opposite to whatever it is that they've been born with. There's lots of reasons for that. And so a lot of times they're just simply trying to fix that part, of trying to feel like normal again. You know what I mean? In that sense. And I think he understands that in a conceptual way. A lot of us, I think even me, myself, I think we can talk about those things and be like, oh yeah, I kind of understand it. But the reality is that we don't understand it unless we ourselves went through it. You know what I mean? And I can just say this, like, I remember in not high school. High school was great. No problems there. But I remember in middle school, and I mean, I'm not gay, right? But I had people that would bully me all the time and harass me. And I don't know what it was, what I did to make them think that I was different or anything. But I just think to myself, oh man, imagine if I really was different. You know what I mean? How would I feel? How hard it would be to be in that situation. And then to top it off, we're in a situation we live in America where things have gotten a lot better. And it's, you know, there's still countries that have outlawed being homosexual. You know, people get killed, you know, all the time for it. So I just, whoops, I got a OneDrive. Hold on a second. Something popped up on my computer. Look at that. It's all real time, right? But I won't go into it too much. The other big issue that we'll probably talk about in another podcast is this idea about your genitalia, right? So like, oh, if you're like, it seems simple. Like even me, like, oh, okay, yeah, you got a pussy, you're a woman, right? You know, it seems pretty straightforward, right? The problem is that there's actually a huge amount of variations that can happen. And there's some stuff we, as a society, what's happened is we've had different variations. And for a long time, what we've done is we've simply said, well, you know, it makes things simpler to just say there's a man and a woman. And I will say this too, from a more of a conservative standpoint, it actually makes sense. It comes down to kind of a survival thing, right? We need to know which are the females that we can fuck. You know what I mean? We need to know, like it's kind of weird, but we kind of create an illusion in our mind about the way we think of sexuality and the way we think of men and women. Okay. So basically we do that. But then what happens is we come across someone who, let's say they're not trans. Let's just say that it's a woman that's kind of dressed more like a man and doesn't believe in the same things, same ideals of what we think of a woman. And so we kind of treat them differently, even if they're not even trans, right? So we run into that. And then when we have the deal, we talk about sports and stuff, you know, we're coming face to face with this kind of fight between kind of the standard of how we always viewed, you know, men and women, and how what's now happening, there's more democracy. People are starting to see themselves a little differently. And so there's a pushback between the conservative values of family values and that kind of stuff, and the standard man versus man and woman, and this sort of more open attitudes, right? And I think that's normal. That's natural to have that pushback a little bit. And so as a society, we kind of push back against each other, right? And here's the thing that I'm going to say about conservatives, right? In a kind of a good standpoint, there's a need for a structure. There is a reason why we have a society and have that structure. So it's normal to push back a little bit, and because we want to hold things together. So the thing is that if we push too hard, if there's too many people pushing on something and we make changes too quickly, I could just tell you, it's hard to explain this, but it could be disastrous. It could be absolute disastrous. And we may be heading that way to a degree, but it's nothing we can do about it. You know what I mean? And only future can tell. So what do you think about what I'm saying? I want to get your take.
Honestly, I think I see things a little bit differently. You're talking about sort of conservative, you're talking about sort of political sides, but I see it more as like a science versus a non-scientific side.
Okay.
Kind of a factual versus a fantasy side.
Well, I just gave you a number of different factual things. One is that there's the variations. The other is that, you know, well, later on we'll talk about the chromosomes, and that gets really crazy. But what I'm saying is that there's multiple, do you understand that idea? There's multiple variations. But what we've done basically is have said, well, no, it's just this or that. It's that dualistic thinking of there's only men, there's only women. And to me, I have to be honest, yeah, I think in those ways, but that's natural. That's survival. That's kind of
science.
the way.
That's science.
Well, science in yes and no. It's science in the sense that the variations is the science part. If you want to be truthful,
sure, yeah.
What is the social science is what you're talking about. So when we're talking about what's natural, is that we have to make this illusion of ourselves. And here's the weird part, is that trans people, in a sense, fall under the same kind of an illusion as well. Think about it. For someone who's, say, was born a man and they transitioned to a woman, what do? They're holding on to the idea, oh, I'm a woman now. Like, it's so important that they have to be now this woman. Who gave them that idea that they have to pick, that they have to be this or that? Right. What's really crazy is that maybe we're just human. Now, I want to talk about, this is going to be fun because I want to talk to you about this. And just to wrap it up, where I see the future in this whole thing, and it's kind of crazy. First of all, where we're at now, we're just seeing the edges of it. We're just kind of the little bit of this, people talking about fluidity and all this stuff, and whatever. It seems kind of nutty and crazy, and it is to a degree, right? But when you get into DNA splicing and technology is related to that, things are going to get really weird, okay? And the same of, there's kind of exciting and it can be scary as well, but the future of VR. So kind of what I see that could happen is that you meet somebody, right, in this virtual reality thing, and you have your avatar, right? You meet them and whatever. And basically it's almost like at a bar, you go up to them, whoever it is. Of course, you don't know if it's a man or a woman, or you don't know what's the deal. But just based on the avatar, you say, hey, you strike a conversation and you kind of hit it off. And basically you tell them, hey, you know what? I don't like your avatar. I'm kind of into this. And they say, oh, really? And then you can like change their avatar in what you think of as what you like, right? And so like you kind of go on this sort of adventure. And then it's like, okay, you want to explore things more? And then we can actually explore things in a physical way where there's actual touch and, you know what I mean? And like, there's stuff involved, between people. And then it gets real blurry. Like is it a man? Is it a woman? Like what's going on, man? So I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I feel like that at some point, that maybe things will go in that direction, which is scary and, and kind of bizarre at the same time. But what do you think about that?
No, I think that you're right. I think that will happen. I think it's interesting. We're both giving Chappelle a complete pass on his show here. We don't find it offensive.
Correct.
But I think you and I were coming at it from a little bit different angles. One of our next episodes is going to be about transgenders in sports, transgender people in sports, and specifically there's a transgender person, and she's the most winningest person on Jeopardy. So I think that's a great this is a great spot for us to move on from this topic with Chappelle.
You go ahead. Oh, I just want to add just one little thing to what you're saying, and that's simply that as the last thing about Chappelle, I mean, like I said before, I am for freedom of speech. He may say some things that maybe I don't 100% agree with, but honestly, it doesn't matter what I think. For the most part, he's a funny guy, and I think it's great. I think people should give him a chance, and fully watch his special, give him the benefit of the doubt. And if you find something that you don't like, you can, I guess, send him a text or something, right? Get on Twitter and, go on there. So, hey man, like and subscribe and all that bullshit, you know what I mean? And we're going to be on Spotify. I've been trying to get us on iTunes, but I honestly can't figure it out, you know what I mean? So, but, all the social network stuff. So anyways, and looks like you're in Death Valley right now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is the Filthy Truth Exposed live from Death Valley here.
Yeah. Anyways, well, I'm Filthy Phil, and you're?
I'm Bill O'Baggins.
Yeah. So, and with that, say goodbye. Peace out.